Hello children and welcome to today's session. We all know that life exists on earth because of the presence of air, water and suitable temperature. We also know that all these conditions were present only on earth. Other than the earth, on all the other 7 planets, these conditions do not occur together. Therefore, there are many forms of life. Whenever you look up around yourself, you will see everything and anything from a tiny insect to a huge tree, which is thriving on our planet. Now, we all also know that life on Earth began in the form of tiny microbial organisms. It was slowly and steadily that these organisms began to multiply, began to evolve, and developed into complex organisms which we see around us in our present day. Now, all these living forms that are around us, be it a tiny microorganism or a huge elephant or a very huge tree, all these form biodiversity. And this is what we are going to learn in the chapter today about conservation of biodiversity. So before we understand conservation of biodiversity, let us understand what is biodiversity and what is the use of biodiversity. So biodiversity can be defined as the huge variety of different living species in a particular area. So we all know that there are different kinds of habitat. Animals, plants, etc. डेजर्ट में भी रहते हैं, माउंटेन्स पे भी रहते हैं, कोस्टल एरियाज में भी रहते हैं और प्लेन्स पे भी रहते हैं. बट एक डेजर्ट एरिया में प्लांट पॉपुलेशन उतनी ज़्यादा नहीं होगी. बट अदर देन प्लांट्स यू फाइंड सो मेनी काइंड्स ऑफ एनिमल्स लाइक द स्नेक or the rat or the fennec fox. You also have the camel, which is the sheep of the desert. अगर डेजर्ट सैंड का क्लोजली एग्जामिनेशन किया जाए, we will see that it is full of microorganisms. Similarly, अगर हम एक रेन फॉरेस्ट की बात करते हैं, we have learnt in our junior classes that रेन फॉरेस्ट के अंदर इतनी सारी availability of food होती है, because of which there are tens and thousands of animals available. There are primates, there are fungi, there are big and small insects, there are reptiles and rodents and all kinds of organisms. Even in the very, very cold polar ice caps, we can see seals, we can see penguins, and we can see polar bears. So all these living beings include biodiversity. Now let us understand the importance and uses of biodiversity for us. So the first important thing that we need to know about biodiversity is that it is a source of food. We all eat many kinds of edible plants. We also obtain meat, milk and eggs from different kinds of animals. So we depend on biodiversity for food. The second thing is that we obtain drugs and medicines from plants. How? Let us see with examples. Aspirin was the most commonly used painkiller in earlier times, and this was obtained from the bark of willow tree. Morphine is also a painkiller and it is used from the poppy plant. Quinine, as we all know, is a drug to treat malaria and it is obtained from cinchona tree. Industrial products such as oil, lubricants, perfumes, fabrics, etc. are also obtained from the forests. For example, wool, silk, lac, fur, honey and leather are products that we obtain from different plants and animals. Tourism and recreation. We all like to travel to different parts of the world and see the biodiversity, the wildlife and the animals in those areas. Aesthetic and cultural benefits. So when we raise tiny balcony gardens, we know that it actually gives a very calm and soothing effect on our minds. In the same way, keeping pets like dogs, cats or birds like parrots or fish in the aquarium also has a very calming and soothing effect on human beings. Then there is the ecological balance. Now, why are plants required? Why are forests required is something we have been reading throughout our life. We know that plants maintain the climate of the planet. We know that there is an interdependence between plants and animals in a forest. So, by killing any particular species, we can actually break this ecological balance. That is the reason it is so important to maintain biodiversity and understand the reasons because of which this biodiversity is in danger. Now, the first and foremost reason why biodiversity is threatened because of trading. Now, this international trade can be both of wildlife and wildlife products. For example, if an animal species is rare in one country, they may be kidnapped illegally, which is called poaching, and they may be sold to another country which may not have that wildlife. So, people who can spend that kind of money would keep these animals as pets. Then there are also myths about usage of certain animal parts in curing diseases like the tiger nails, etc. People also keep tiger nails for luck factor. Yes, it is very ironical, but then there are certain people who use ivory, which is obtained from the elephant tusk. They use bile and skeleton of different animals. They use claws of tigers to keep at home. Because of these, animals are killed and their parts are extracted and they are sold illegally. प्लांट्स एंड एनिमल्स तब भी बहुत ज्यादा सफर करते हैं जब ह्यूमन बींग्स अपने यूज के लिए फॉरेस्ट की लार्ज स्केल डिस्ट्रक्शन करते हैं और इनका ओरिजिनल हैबिटेट खत्म हो जाता है. पोल्यूशन और ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की वजह से फॉरेस्ट कवर कम होता जा रहा है. यू वुड हैव हर्ड न्यूज ऑफ सडनली फॉरेस्ट कैचिंग फायर. Because of all this, the plant life is suffering and the animal life in the jungle is also getting killed. Introduction of exotic species around the world is also a threat to biodiversity. Exotic species का मतलब एक ऐसी species which is very beautiful to look at. It has got very unique features. ये स्पीशी किसी एक जगह पर है, दूसरी जगह पर नहीं है. इसको वहां से उठाकर दूसरी जगह पे प्लांट कर दिया जाता है, एज इन केस ऑफ जूस एंड नेशनल पार्क्स. That species may or may not like the new environment. Also, we do not know how that species will behave with the originally existing biodiversity. That is why it poses a threat. Now we know that why biodiversity is in danger. Let us understand how biodiversity can be conserved. Conserved मतलब हम उसको कैसे बचा सकते हैं. So the first and effective method is forest conservation. Actually में forests ही तो बर्बाद हो रहे हैं जिसकी वजह से animal और plant life destroy हो रही है. So forest management is the first step. Forest management के अंदर एक set of trees of the same age are cut. This is called block cutting. और उनकी जगह exactly वहीं पे young saplings को immediately plant कर दिया जाता है. इसकी वजह से क्या होता है? These forests become a regular supply of timber. How? Because जो trees cut हो रहे हैं blocks के अंदर, वही trees आपको वापस grow करके मिल रहे हैं. So this becomes a continuous cycle. इसमें कोई कट या ब्रेक नहीं है. नेक्स्ट इज एफॉरेस्टेशन. एफॉरेस्टेशन का मतलब है exactly the opposite of deforestation. So when you are cutting so many trees, you are also planting saplings all around you. And planting of saplings actually becomes very essential in countries and in towns and cities. Reason? टाउन्स और सिटीज में ऑलरेडी इतनी कॉन्क्रीटाइजेशन होती है. कॉन्क्रीटाइजेशन मतलब बहुत सारे घर बने हुए हैं. देयर इज नो सॉफ्ट सॉइल अवेलेबल एनीवेयर. अगर हम ऐसी जगहों पर बहुत सारे ट्रीज लगाएंगे, ये ट्रीज रेन वाटर अब्सॉर्ब करेंगे, ग्राउंड वाटर का लेवल इंक्रीज होगा और इसकी वजह से वहां पर नेचुरल डिजास्टर्स कम से कम होंगे. नेक्स्ट इज प्रिवेंटिंग ओवर ग्रेजिंग. एनिमल्स की ग्रेजिंग के लिए सेपरेट ग्रेजिंग फील्ड्स अलॉटेड होने चाहिए. दे शुड नॉट बी अलाउड टू ग्रेज everywhere, because whenever the animals graze on the grass that is growing, उस जगह को कोई रीप्लांट नहीं करता. द सॉइल इज एक्सपोज्ड, द सॉइल इज प्रोन टू इरोजन एंड देयरफॉर दैट लैंड इवेंचुअली बिकम्स barren. प्रोटेक्शन फ्रॉम पेस्ट. बड़े बड़े जंगलों को टर्माइट या दीमक खराब कर देती है. इसका क्या इलाज है? पेस्टिसाइड और इंसेक्टिसाइड एक ऑप्शन हो सकते हैं, बट द प्रॉब्लम इज इतने ह्यूज एरियाज के ऊपर पेस्टिसाइड स्प्रे करना कभी कभी बहुत डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है. सो द आइडियल वे इज दैट यू शुड गो फॉर नेचुरल इंसेक्टिसाइड्स, जैसे कि different birds, frogs, snakes, toads, etc., which feed on these insects and they can consume them naturally. Forest fire becomes another huge source of destruction of forest, क्योंकि forest fire के अंदर plants, animals दोनों affect होते हैं. फॉरेस्ट फायर के अंदर जो ग्राउंड लेवल के ऊपर टाइनी प्लांट्स उग रहे होते हैं वो भी बर्न आउट हो जाते हैं. और इसके साथ साथ जो सॉइल होता है, द टॉप सॉइल, द ह्यूमस इज ऑल्सो बर्नड आउट. इसके बाद फॉरेस्ट फायर जहां लगी हो वो फॉरेस्ट आर टोटली नॉट अवेलेबल फॉर ग्रोइंग एनीथिंग. फॉरेस्ट फायर के दो रीजंस होते हैं. फर्स्ट, लाइटनिंग इज अ नेचुरल कॉज ऑफ फॉरेस्ट फायर एंड सेकेंड, ह्यूमन केयरलेसनेस इज अनदर फैक्टर. फॉरेस्ट फायर लगने पे जनरली एयरप्लेन्स के थ्रू फायर एक्सटिंग्विशिंग सॉल्यूशंस को उस बड़े एरिया पे स्प्रे किया जाता है. The next means of conservation of biodiversity is formation of national parks. National parks के अंदर एक एरिया जिसके अंदर बहुत सारे एनिमल्स और बहुत सारे प्लांट वेराइटीज होती है, उस एरिया को फॉरेस्ट एक्टिविटीज से दूर रखा जाता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एक्टिविटीज लाइक कलेक्शन ऑफ फॉरेस्ट प्रोडक्ट्स, cultivation of food and grazing of animals are not allowed in such areas. Some examples are Jim Corbett National Park in Uttaranchal, the Gir National Park in Gujarat. इन areas के अंदर animals बहुत freely move करते हैं. यहाँ पर people are not allowed to cut trees. They are not allowed to gather forest products. This actually enables the flora and the fauna to thrive in the areas. There are some national parks which also conserve the bird life, like the Chilka Lake Park in Odisha. Now let us understand how different animals fall in different categories. सबसे पहले बात करते हैं endangered species की. Endangered species वो species होती है जिसका नंबर बहुत ज़्यादा कम रह गया है, and over a period of a few years only that species may get extinct. Vulnerable species होती है a species that has moved from vulnerable to endangered category. अगर इनके आसपास के फैक्टर्स को चेक नहीं किया जाएगा, again they will completely turn into endangered species. Then there are rare species. Rare species are the species which are already in a very very tiny population and they need assistance in blooming and growing. There are also threatened species. Threatened species कौन सी होती हैं? इन सारी species को collectively बोलते हैं threatened species. IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, has formed a red book. This red book contains the names of all the animals which are endangered. Now, in order to secure the species, we have already learned that there are protected areas like national parks and sanctuaries. Additionally, the government has also created many separate projects which take care of specific animals. For example, the wildlife projects like the Project Tiger is specifically targeting the tiger population in West Bengal. They are trying to stop illegal poaching of these animals and they are also providing the right environment for their reproduction. The Gir Park is dedicated to the lions and it is taking care of these lions thriving in different areas. Similarly, there are also projects that are dedicated solely to the conservation of elephants, rhinoceros, and even the crocodiles. So in this chapter, you have learned the meaning of diversity. You have learned how biodiversity is useful to us. You have also learned what are the ways in which we can conserve biodiversity and what is our role in doing the same. Thank you.